This is the Married to Doctors podcast, episode number 92.
So as an entrepreneur, see what's working, test out a few things, and if something's not working, look at your personality, see what kind of person you are, and then do things based on your personality, around your business.
Welcome to the Married to Doctors podcast. Because we know that being married to a doctor isn't always as glamorous as it sounds, our podcast helps successful homes be happier. We're here to build community, hear your stories, and explore solutions with the experts. Here's your host, Laura McKeldry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Married to Doctors podcast. It's always a joy to be here with you. And today I have Rachel Hernandez. This is a wonderful new episode, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about real estate and business in a marriage, how that works, and what that has meant for her as she's been married to a physician, what that's looked like. Rachel has kind of an interesting business, I feel like, because she's into real estate, but she's actually into real estate through mobile home investing. And I just find it fascinating the way she's been able to find a niche and build up her business. So we're going to talk to her about that and what it's meant for their marriage today on the podcast. I think you'll really enjoy this episode, and I'm so thankful she's here. Also, this happens to be coming out on the 4th of July, so hopefully you're on a beach or enjoying the 4th, but if you're stuck at home with your husband on call and you're able to listen to this episode the day it comes out, happy 4th of July, and I'm always cheering for you in your corner. Wishing you all the very best, and please reach out to me anytime with questions or ideas for the show. Have a great week, everyone. Today's episode is brought to you by Contract Diagnostics. Contract Diagnostics is a firm 100% dedicated to physician contract reviews. They provide a service that all physician families will need at least one time in their careers, and many of you may need it more than once. I love this company as they've helped many thousands of physicians understand not only what they're signing, but also the risks they're taking for their families. They actually encourage the spouse to also join in on the calls, which I really appreciate. All contracts are reviewed by an in-house attorney and presented in a simplified way back to you, using custom documentation, compensation data, and times outside normal business hours. They really do make it easy for you. The packages are flat price, so you know what you're going to pay up front, and residents and fellows can even make interest-free payments over time, which is something else I really appreciate about them. So look them up. They're contractdiagnostics.com, or their phone number is 888-574-5526. We actually used this company ourselves once, and we really had a great experience with them. So reach out to them anytime, contractdiagnostics.com. Rachel Hernandez, thank you so much for joining me on the Married to Doctors podcast.
Thanks, Laura, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to know you and for my listeners to meet you. Go ahead and tell us who you are.
Okay. Well, as Laura said, my name is Rachel Hernandez. I'm a real estate investor and author, and I'm married to a physician. His specialty is family medicine. We've been married for quite a long time, 16 years. We do have a daughter, a 6-year-old daughter, and a 3-year-old dog.
Okay, 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old dog. Love it. Okay, and 16 years, congratulations on that. How did you guys meet?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. We were both very young when we met. So I was in high school and he was actually in college. We're both from California. So he was actually a year ahead of me. He was already in college and I was still in high school. So after high school, when I graduated, I chose to attend the same university as him. Of course, wanting to be a physician. He went pre-med. And for me, I was a humanities major and I majored in philosophy. At the time, I was going pre-law, but then I got into marketing and eventually sales. So while we were going to college, we were dating, and he did propose while we were both in college. We were engaged for 5 years, together for 8 years before we finally got married at the end of medical school. So that's kind of how we met.
Wow, like your dating engagements last longer than a lot of marriages. So you guys have been together for a while then. If you add that 8 years to your 16, yeah, that's like 24 years together, right?
Yeah, it's funny because we were engaged for so long, and I think it happened like in medical school. He kept asking, well, when are we going to get married? When are we going to get married? And I kept pushing it off because, like, to me, I thought, when you get married, you got to have kids, you got to buy a house. And I just wasn't sure if I was ready for all that at that time while he was still in medical school. I mean, imagine doing that through college. So it wasn't until the last year of medical school where we finally got married. I think I told you, Laura, he was actually accepted to the Health Professional Scholarship Program, HPSP program, where the military will pay for his medical school. And in exchange, he'd have to serve them through the military. So after he graduated from medical school, he was placed in the residency, and the last straw was like, well, we need to get married now. Otherwise you can't come on base and go to the commissary. And I really wanted to see the commissary. For anyone who's not military, commissary is on base. All the items are tax-free. There's a big grocery, and there's all kinds of items that you can buy. And I've never been in it because my family's not military.
Okay, Rachel. So you got married to go to a grocery store. Come on.
Pretty much. I really wanted to see, and tax-free. Tax-free.
Okay. This is one of the least romantic stories we've heard yet. I'm just kidding. Oh, that's funny. That's funny that helped push you in that decision. But no, for sure, when you're in the military, like if you're married, the benefits are very different than if you're not.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of what happened. It was the last year of medical school. I kind of threw the wedding together. He went to medical school in Arizona, and all of our family is from California, and his mom was really excited. She put a deposit for a place in California, and I told him, no, we want it in Arizona. But she put the deposit anyways after I told them, like, no, I don't want 1 million people coming here. Very simple. So they were upset. There was a lot of drama, and it was a very small wedding, and everyone came who wanted to come. They had to come all the way to Arizona for the wedding. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, weddings can be stressful. You hear about a lot of people who have stressful weddings. So I'm glad you got through it, right?
Right. Exactly. So after we got married,
curious.
Sure. After we got married, then he actually had to do something with the military. I think it was an additional rotation. We didn't actually even have a honeymoon. Like after we got married, he had to leave. I think he had to go to Florida, actually. And my best friend, one of my best friends from college, had asked me, so what's going to happen tonight? I'm like, well, he's leaving, but you can take our suite if you like, because our parents booked the suite anyways. And she was like, oh my goodness. So I think it was from then that my husband got a bad taste of medicine in his mouth. So.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say he got a bad taste of medicine. Do you think he got a bad taste of medicine or of the military?
No, I think it's more of medicine in general because, not just the military, but just he's told me like throughout our relationship, I just feel like I never had a chance to actually pick exactly what I wanted to do in life. He didn't know in college, so there's a lot of pressure, from family and friends. Well, just pick something, and he was good at biology, so he just decided to go into medicine, but he didn't know exactly what he was getting into until he was in it. And by then he had already went to medical school, and you have the obligation of the military. They paid for medical school. So it was just one of those things.
So how long did he have to pay the military back?
Well, he had to do residency, and that didn't count. And then so after residency, it starts counting every year. So after residency, which he did a family medicine residency for 3 years, it would have been 4 years. And that's when I had told you that we were apart for those 4 years after residency.
Yeah, that's a long time to be apart. And I know a lot of my listeners ask me about long distance. Maybe they have to live long distance for a summer or for a rotation. But you guys made the decision to actually live apart for 4 years. So can you tell us a little bit more about, well, tell us where he was, where you were, and then what did you guys do during that time to keep your relationship going? Because that seems like a long time to me.
Yes, it is. And a lot of my friends thought I was crazy. And a lot of my friends here told me, you know what? If that was me, I'd probably find someone else because that's too crazy. I mean, even my own parents, I specifically remember my dad, he was concerned that we were apart for so long. And he told me, well, you know what? If it doesn't work out, you can always move in back home with us. And I told my husband, and he was really upset about that statement. So,
yeah, because he was overseas. Is that right?
Yes, he was overseas. So his first tour was an unaccompanied tour after residency to South Korea for 1 year. This was really hard because I couldn't stay there on base with him, though I did get to visit, but it was not the same as staying with someone on base. So that was the first year in South Korea. After that year, his next station was an company tour to Germany, and this lasted for 3 years. Now, I did have the choice of staying with him on base, but back in medical school, he really got into reading about investing. And he was inspired by a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, to get into real estate investing. So at that time, while he was away in Germany, I was building our real estate investing business.
And tell me a little bit more about this. So did you guys decide to do the real estate thing as a couple, or was this like your baby and something that you had a lot of passion behind?
Not really. It was all his idea. This is kind of like Wizard of Oz kind of thing, Laura, because he was the one who did all the reading about the investing and getting a form of passive income. So, you know, you're not dependent on a job or someone, you know, to pay the bills. And he was influenced in medical school, actually, with this book. So we just kept reading and reading and reading. Then once we got into residency, we were based in Washington, D.C. He wanted me to start the business. So I did start the business, and then he had to go, you know, pay back the military after residency, and he wanted me to continue the business. So all that time, he was very supportive. It was hard to be a part of the business. So while he was overseas in Korea and Germany, I was working pretty long hours just getting this real estate investing business off the ground. I'll tell you a funny story. It was hard for me to actually, you know, go out and get together with friends. And I did have friends here, but I remember one time we went out to dinner and it was really late and it was like 10 o'clock and my friends were waiting for me. They're like, come on, you got to get out. All you do is this real estate business. We never see you. And that night I'd actually been with a plumber on one of our properties. And I'm like, I'm not even dressed, and I don't think I look, I look right for going out. But they told me to go out with them, so I did, and we ordered our food. And I was so tired, my head almost fell on a plate of spaghetti. So that's how exhausted I was.
Yeah, it is a lot of work to own and work on a business. So good for you. And so you guys kind of went through this interesting thing, and I know you have a whole website about this, but it sounds like you started out kind of investing in properties, and then eventually you kind of found this niche within the property owning world, I guess, and that is mobile homes. Is that right?
Yes, it was actually, my husband's idea. He learned about mobile homes and the niche of mobile homes, and he's like, maybe we should get into this. This was in residency before he went overseas. And I was like, nah, I don't know about that. I didn't really pursue it. I tried to go to a mobile home park and talk to a park manager, but it didn't work out. So I just kind of, decided not to do it. So it wasn't until residency was over and he convinced me to get into mobile home investing, where we sold our entire portfolio of single family properties. And then I went into mobile home investing. So it's really been his idea for me to do it. And I did have some, qualms about it because there's not much information about mobile homes and mobile home investing out there. And there's kind of this negative stigma, like what kind of people live in these communities.
Right. And that they depreciate in value, right? That's what I've always heard. Whereas a home maintains its value, a mobile home is more like a car where it depreciates in value. Have you found that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does depreciate in value. But I found out, just like single family homes, there's different types of mobile home communities. They're not all the types that you see on TV or in the movies that it's run down. There are actually some really nice mobile home communities out there. So I learned a lot, and, I've just been running this business now. And his idea of trying to create all these passive streams of income is actually working. So
wow, that's interesting. So are you like the lender as well? So is it like you're getting money, like are you buying the home up front and then receiving the money much like a bank would, or what's your role exactly as the investor?
Well, I mean, when people see me out on the streets, I'm the property manager. But yes, we're actually buying these homes in cash in different communities. So our properties are all over within a 2-mile radius. And so the amount of homes we have now is the size of a small mobile home park. So basically, since there's no mortgage on these homes, and I'll tell you, Laura, the insurance and taxes are very minimal on these things since they do tend to depreciate, we get all that cash flow. And so my husband's idea way back in medical school was to have the real estate investing business overtake his income. And I can say now it has, so...
Wow, that's amazing. So I know a lot of my listeners, they get kind of the bug, I don't know what to call it, but like a lot of people, they kind of, stay at home dads, stay at home moms. They're kind of like, I want to do something. I want to start a business. I want to be an entrepreneur. What advice do you have for those listening that are like, I want to do something cool like that, but I don't know what to do? What would you do?
Right. Well, I mean, I can tell you, Laura, I was on the same boat because I know for myself, I wanted to start a business. I just didn't know what kind of business. In college, I started a career consulting business. I had a resume business. At one time, I had a career-oriented website. And then I also wanted to have a coffee business. I was going to, work at Starbucks as a coffee barista. But they said I was overqualified with my resume. So, I mean, I'm in all different places as an entrepreneur. And so my advice for people like that is actually really talk to your spouse and make sure first, because I've seen so many entrepreneurs I've met run their business alone. Try to talk to your spouse and see what other, because they should be your best friend, what other viewpoints they have, to help. Because if it wasn't for my husband, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. So he really helped me to focus. It's like, no, this is, real estate. He did a lot of background research. And then we went into the history of being a property owner has gone since the beginning of time. And then I learned about money lending, back before there was any kind of technology. So I really encourage people to get on board with your spouse, especially if you're married to physicians. And physicians, and their families, I mean, y'all are smart people. So, and you've got a lot of information at your tips. So don't try to go at it alone. Really get your family and your spouse involved.
Yeah, that's interesting. And obviously he was very into it. Like you said, it was kind of his idea, as well as he must have been into it to be willing to say, hey, let's live apart and even overseas from each other while you work on the business.
Yes, exactly. I don't know what it was. He was just, it was enlightening reading about it in medical school. And I guess it's just his value system is very strong. He really wanted to have the family as the most important above a career. And he's been telling me that since we've been together, and for some reason I haven't been listening. Even his mom told me, his career is more important than yours, and that could be another whole podcast. But I've learned through the 16 years of marriage that he still believes in like the family unit. So as I'm talking to you on this podcast, he's in the garage right now working on making our cars look better. So.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And good for you guys for working together on those goals, because I think one thing that can be really neat in a marriage relationship is when you, as a couple, share some type of goal. And it doesn't necessarily have to be owning a business, but just something like maybe you work on a remodel of your bathroom together, or I don't know, you plant a garden together, or, maybe it's just like you get through having children together, but those shared goals, I think, really do draw couples closer together.
Exactly. I mean, I think you just need to include your spouse, include your family. If you have kids, and make it a family activity. Because my husband told me, now that we have a family, it's not just you. Because I grew up in a family where my family, my parents, and also my siblings, they kind of did their own thing, which was completely different from him and his family. And he's trying to show me what to him family, means. And I believe in high school he even took a marriage class. So I'm learning, Laura. I'm learning.
That's awesome. So what kind of advice do you have when someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to learn about investing? Like, do you have a book you recommend?
Okay. Well, for those who want to learn about investing, there's a lot of different books out there. My husband did start with that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I think the eye-opener in that book was just the concept of having a stream of passive income that comes in and day out, that does not require you to physically be there. I don't know if I told you, Laura, but me and my husband were thinking of opening up our own practice a couple years back, and we did a lot of research, family medicine practice about it. But we soon learned if he was going to be the doctor, the business would depend on him. So if he was not there seeing patients, it would stop. So from then on, we kind of tabled that idea and just focused on real estate. So for anyone learning about investing, that's a good book. And I encourage you, like I said, and Laura encouraged everyone to just get your spouse involved if you do want to learn about investing, and to get ideas and different perspectives and something that you can do together. There's also a game that we played from that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, called Cash Flow game. And you can actually play it with your kids as well, too, to teach them about money and how money works. So those are some suggestions I have. But I did want to say something to your audience about investing, specifically real estate, Laura. And this is for me as an investor. I don't believe your home is an investment. I believe it's just a place to live. So a lot of people go in thinking they can buy a home and then, make it an investment property. I just don't have that perspective on that. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting point of view. I've heard that from people. You're right. There are kind of two camps of thought, I think. One is, for a lot of people, their home is their biggest investment. It's where most of their wealth is. I think with physicians, that can change sometimes as they get more established in their career, and depending on their salaries, what they're able to do with money. That's fascinating, though. Any advice you want to give to entrepreneurs out there in general? Because I know like having your own business, putting yourself out there, like really going for it day after day, that can be kind of exhausting. So any advice for anyone that's new to entrepreneurship and trying to make something work?
My advice would be to keep at it, but do reassess what's working and what's not working. I've been in the real estate investing business for over a decade, and there's always things that work and there's things that don't work based on my personality. And in the past, I've done things that have worked for other entrepreneurs, other real estate investors, but haven't necessarily worked for me because my personality is different. One example is using direct mail. A lot of real estate investors or entrepreneurs, they tend to do that, but I'm not an office person. I'm more outgoing and I want to talk to people. I'd rather go out and meet someone or call someone on the phone than be stuck in an office, sending out 1,000 pieces of direct mail. It just didn't work for me. So as an entrepreneur, see what's working, test out a few things. And if something's not working, look at your personality, see what kind of person you are, and then do things based on your personality, around your business. So that would be my advice for entrepreneurs on that.
Okay, awesome. I guess just kind of one more question winding down here. Did you have any like marriage story you wanted to share with us, or marriage advice, something that maybe you and your spouse have gone through together where you drew closer together, or where you learned like a life lesson?
Sure. This one comes from my husband again. Don't assume anything. For me personally, I think I had mentioned the way I grew up. I was actually raised by nannies, so my parents were not around that much. There was a lot of individualism in my family. So my dad worked long hours. He had an MBA. My mom had a group of friends she'd go out with. And so I was really raised by nannies, and I would go to people's houses of my friends and eat dinner with their parents and even go on ski trips with their parents and families, which my husband thought was really weird. So, when it comes to your spouse, just don't assume anything. I remember in residency specifically, it would be at night because during the day I'd be so busy with the real estate investing business. My husband would want to have dinner with me, but he's at the hospital, obviously. So he'd want me to take him dinner. So I did. And I just felt really uncomfortable there because there was all these residents there. Their pages were going off every 5 seconds. We were eating dinner, and then my husband had to take call. His pager went off. And so he'd leave. He's like, I'll be right back. And then I'd be waiting there. And I felt really uncomfortable. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe, I'm in the way. So I would just leave, Laura. And then I'm driving home. My husband would call me on my cell phone. Where are you? We're still eating. I'm like, well, I didn't know if you wanted me there, so, and we fight about this for years, even after 16 years of marriage. So, like I said, I'm still learning. Don't assume anything. Talk to your spouse. Communication is key. And I'll admit I'm not the best at that in terms of like communicating with my spouse about that. And I am learning because they want to know, what's going on with you and what's going on in your head. So don't assume anything. And that's my advice on that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I also think it's great that you say you're learning, because isn't that the truth? Like, it doesn't matter how long you're married to someone, you have to keep learning how to love each other.
Yes, it's a constant. I'll tell you that.
It sounds very unromantic to learn to love someone, because we just want to be like, I fell so hard and fast in love with you, and it's just effortless,
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but I think strong marriages take work and a little bit of effort, but they can be great.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Awesome. All right, well, any other marriage advice or anything you want to leave us with?
Sure. I mean, if anyone has any questions, I am a spouse of a physician about anything, feel free to contact me, or if you even have any questions about real estate investing, I have written a couple books. You can contact me. my website, if anyone would like to, is adventuresinmobilehomes.com. So feel free to shoot me a message if you have any questions.
Yeah, and we'll put that in the show notes too. Adventures in Mobile Homes?
Yes.
Adventuresinmobilehomes.com. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I could write the same book, but mine would be about growing up in the mobile home park. It's very different. For those of you that have listened to some of my earlier episodes, I've talked about how I came from a very modest background, and yeah, I lived in some mobile home parks. So yeah, that'd be a little bit of a different episode, but that's okay. Yeah, it all helped build my character, right? So
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been really great. And I really admire you guys for keeping your marriage together and having shared goals and also like working on the long distance thing. Did we touch on that? What did you guys do for 4 years? Was there a secret sauce there? We need to plug that real quick before we end.
Sure. Well, we did a lot of Skype, I believe, and I am just like not a technology person. So my husband got me on that Skype program. So we did that, but there was a period of time when he was in Germany, he actually got deployed to Iraq. And that was hard because we couldn't do Skype at the time. So we did a lot of email, and he was able to call me, make phone calls. So that was probably a pretty hard point in our life when he had to get deployed in Iraq. And of course, as the spouse, you're worried, and I sent care packages, and I just wanted him to come back safe and sound. And that was one of the reasons why he did eventually get out of the military. It was just too much with the moving and also the chance of getting deployed. To him, it just wasn't worth it. But while he was overseas, I was running the real estate business, investing business. There were times where I was working 80 hours a week. So it was pretty grueling, for any entrepreneurs out there, put in your time. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It just may take a while to get there. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great advice, Rachel. It's been so fun to get to know you a little bit, and I appreciate your time today.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Married to Doctors podcast. Our mission is to make successful homes happier. To learn more or to share your story, visit our website at marriedtodoctors.com.